Great good morning, everyone. It is a beautiful Thursday, January 15, a year of our Lord 2026. My Cordaro Jewelers watch tells me it's 9:13 and change. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he. Broadcasting today from the United States of America, where we've got a lot of goofy idiots who just won't tell the truth. But it's also the place where the brave, like the veterans we salute today, even though we lost them last year, thanks to John Basiliga and his great Basiliga hospitality group, like Paul Leonard, West Hazelton, Gary Leyland, Clark Summit, Michael Halfacker, Dixon City, Francis Crilly, Mountaintop, Nelson Blackwell, Scranton, and Richard Dick Wenner, Stillwater. The United States of America, founded with a certain knowledge and understanding by our incredible, irreplaceable, amazing founding fathers, that government is not, shall not be, cannot be our parent, our guide, our direction, our salvation. Not any of these things, but is nothing more than a necessary evil we require to organize and protect society. The United States of America, the country where, for the first time in human history, freedom was declared to be an unalienable right granted to each individual by God. It was not something that could be parceled out to groups. It was not something that could be controlled by government or government officials, because our great American Constitution ensures and codifies freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, economic freedom, and freedom of the press, no matter what they report. We know better. Now, armed with these freedoms, and only because they had them, a ragtag bunch of immigrants, rejects, and their progeny created the richest, most powerful, most culturally diverse and accepting nation ever to grace our planet Earth. America, the only place specifically invented and designed so that every American can live their life in the manner they choose, unlimited by their background, upbringing, race, color, or creed, unhindered by the government or those who would use government to control others for their own comfort, benefit, or power. This Bob Cordaro Show, well, it'll always be convincingly conservative, lovingly logical, proudly and passionately patriotic, and reliably right. And so we can gavel to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense for January 15th, promising you, because of our commitment to common sense, we will provide a sanctuary of sanity to all who dare to listen, who dare to care. You see what we have. See, and I need to impress this upon you. And unfortunately, the Democrat Party has glommed onto complete insanity. Doesn't matter if it's regarding illegal aliens. It doesn't matter if it's regarding women in men's sports. I mean, a United States senator asked a woman who claims to be a scientist and physician, can women get pregnant? And her or men, and her political agenda. This is the whole Democrat Party apparatus right now. Except, by the way, except for John Fetterman. Her whole political apparatus and agenda overcomes fact, truth, and reality. Somebody said, I just asked Google if a man can get pregnant and gave me a long answer. It's unbelievable. It permeates society. It's absolutely insane. Wow. By the way, Ginny C says she didn't hear me answer about, she says you didn't answer me about the Clintons. So I know you're busy, but I got this on my phone. No, I answered you about that. I played a clip about the Clintons refusing to appear. We're going to play another one today. Failing and refusing to attend a bipartisan, by the way, although the Democrats didn't show up for that here. It's like, it's so, I'm telling you, what a sickening disgrace the Democrat Party has become. It's all about lies. They base everything on lies. Now, here are these protests in Minnesota are getting violent. And I want to tell you the neighbors, I'm going to give you a partial list. The neighbors, the community members that they are protecting. Like Shrudorn Fivon, a Laotian illegal alien convicted of strong-arm sodomy of a boy and strong-arm sodomy of a girl. Deportation order since 2018. Abdirashid Adosh Elmi, a Somalian illegal alien convicted of homicide. Gabriel Figueroa Gama, a Mexican illegal convicted of homicide who's been previously deported in 2002. Shui Tu, a Burmese illegal alien convicted of negligent homicide. And again, the list can go on and on. This is who ICE is after. And the liars from Minnesota, scum, get on the air. And they say, well, we're completely willing to cooperate with that. But no, you're not. You've instructed your prisons where one or two ICE agents could go in, take the handoff, and leave with the illegal to not cooperate with ICE. And so they've got to be removed on the streets because of you. Just remember, they're liars. You have to be a liar and a hypocrite, just like that doctor is, to support this sick, twisted ideology. We're not even in the area of insanity. I remind you again, area of sanity, I should say. I want to remind you again, they are 100% wrong on everything. There's no room for compromise with that kind of mental illness. There really isn't. And they really have. They've infected our education system, our nonprofits, our foundations, the media. It's insane. Government officials. Somebody doesn't like it. Bob, this list thing every morning is getting quite old. Well, you want the truth. Do you want to understand? Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to defend the stupid idiots who are protesting and protesting violently against ICE in Minnesota and elsewhere. Maybe that's what you want to do. So you don't want to hear the truth. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Please tell me all right, you don't want to hear the list. What other truth do you not want to hear? This is who they're protesting for. This is who they're putting literally their lives on the line for. If you make sense of that, I won't read the list anymore. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. It's Thursday. Hey, couple of good things. We've got Dave McCormick on 10 o'clock. We've got a look at MacArthur with our man Rick Bigelow at 11 o'clock. Looking forward to all of it. We'll take a break and be back. Elvis. Murph tells us he recorded his hit, Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear, this date, 1957. And, of course, the late, great Martin Luther King, born this date, 1929. I remember when I owned radio stations, I had Don Imus on. And Imus would play the I Have a Dream speech every Martin Luther King Day. And Unfortunately, I get it, but unfortunately, everything from the Martin Luther King speeches has been copyrighted and is protected legally from being played, so we can't play it. I would love to have played it today. So again, back to Ginny's question, which is, it's an offshoot. But the Clintons have, and I don't know why Hillary would do it, but I get why Bill would do it. They've refused to appear. And by the way, in classic Clinton fashion, before the House committee that's investigating the Jeffrey Epstein murder. Now, remember, the Democrats, when they thought that Trump was involved with Epstein, were pushing this. Where's the Epstein? So now, when all the information appears that Bill Clinton in particular had extensive involvement and contact with Jeffrey Epstein. By the way, for those of you who don't know it, when they raided Jeffrey Epstein's house, there was a picture, a painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress. Remember the blue dress Monica Lewinsky wore that got the semen stains? A portrait of Bill Clinton in a blue dress in Jeffrey Epstein's house in prominent position. Okay. So, crazy. But they're going to face contempt of Congress charges, which, by the way, the Democrats used against Steve Bannon, and they jailed him. Against Navarro, and they jailed him, Peter Navarro. And now it's come back and bit them in the ass. Now what do? So he says the trolls' online defense to the Clintons is that all the evidence has not been released, so why go in front of Congress? Yeah, because of course they do. But remember what they did. Again, specific in classic Clintonian fashion. They said, oh, we'll come. And then 3 days before the appearance was scheduled, they said, oh, we've got a funeral. We'll do it again. Okay? So again, it's got to be lies and obfuscation. And people forget, as prosperous as the times were, how disgraceful the Clinton administration was, how disgraceful Bill and Hillary Clinton are. Bill, I can't help like him. I like him. He's a character. He's one of those rascals, you know? I enjoyed meeting him, talking to him. He's got a great personality. Hillary, ugh. But we're going to see what happens. It's contempt of Congress against a former president for actions that he undertook when he was no longer president, so he's not protected. It'll be very interesting how that plays out, and we'll be watching it. Bush from Mountaintop says Epstein was at the White House 16 times when Clinton was president. Yep. Trump's been exonerated from any nefarious involvement with this clown, with this scum. But it points to the Clintons, specifically Bill. So we're going to see how it plays out. Ginny, we are following it. And by the way, it's not going to change anything. Those of us who took the Clintons for what they are, yeah, we're going to say, of course. Those who took the Clintons as saviors and loved Hillary and all, well, they're just going to ignore it. They really are. You've watched it. You've watched it. But the same people, as Joe from Trips Park points out, The same people screaming about Trump's involvement now that it's not provable, it didn't happen. They're now defending the Clintons. Why? Why would you have so little integrity? Well, because you support a political party with a sick, twisted, and at its core, evil agenda. We'll be back. Our Veterans Tribute this hour and every hour, this day and every day, brought to you by a true patriot, John Basiliga. Featuring today, just one of his great companies as we head to the weekend, Basiliga Hospitality. 3 bar restaurants that are beyond parallel. Far Street Tavern, the great Trips Park section of WILK of Scranton. The Queen City Tavern, downtown Elephant. And the Old Brook Inn, Route 307, Springbrook Township. Fine dining. It's on, baby. For a modern take and a gorgeous, gorgeous restaurant. A Terra 519. Downtown Scranton. The Stegmeyer Mansion. Taking you back to the Gilded Age. Downtown Wilkes-Barre. And guess what? The hottest nightclub in Northeast PA and beyond, open tonight with no cover. Sergei's Live. Paul Leonard. We lost him at age 86. Loving father, proud grandfather. Born and raised in West Hazleton. 1958 graduate of West Hazleton High School. He proudly served this country in the United States Navy, 1958 to 1962. Prior to his retirement, Paul worked as a plumber with Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 524. Avid outdoorsman. He loved hunting, fly fishing. Grandson Dominic's biggest fan, rarely missing a baseball game. He loved having conversations about history with his eldest grandson, Zachary. He did simple things like picking blueberries, sometimes twice a day. Preceded in death by his parents, a number of brothers, sisters. Survived by his loving and devoted wife of 56 years, the former Elaine Sharkey. His daughters, sons-in-laws, one brother, 3 cherished grandchildren, and other family members. Paul Leonard. Gary Leyland. He was just 75 when we lost him December 10th. In his obit, he's pictured in his Marine uniform. He was from Clark Summit, born in Scranton, graduate of the great Scranton Technical High School and Penn State University. He was employed by Clark Summit State Hospital for 35 years prior to retirement. Former member of the Elm Park United Methodist Church in Scranton. He served us with the U.S. Marine Corps during the Vietnam War. Loving father, grandfather, brother, sports enthusiast. Surviving is his daughter, sons, grandsons, sisters, and other family members. Gary Leyland. Our great veterans this hour, brought to you by John Basiliga and Basiliga Hospitality Group. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from our man, meteorologist Joe Snedeker, brought to you by Montage Mountain. Well, when I think Montage Mountain and the conditions are perfect, I think weather. When I think weather, I think Montage Mountain. Today, windy and colder with flurries. It's not that bad, though. Temperatures will be dropping through the 30s, 29 outside the studio as I speak. Tonight, cloudy and cold down to 17. Friday, partly sunny, high 30. Saturday, cloudy with flurries and snow showers, high 37. Sunday, partly sunny and colder, high 30. Monday, MLK Jr. Day. That's a day off for all of us. We will not be here, me or the Bulldog. Partly sunny and windy with a chance of flurries, high 28 degrees. That's the weather, brought to you by our friends at Montage Mountain. Murph tells us The Who, this date 1965, released their hit, I Can't Explain, in the UK. Great stuff. There we go, Bulldog. It's garbage day today in the Hill section, and my guys came, they conquered. Give a big thanks, guys. We do it. It's every day. But thank your DPW guys for getting the job done. Just want you to think about, what would we do without them? It would be a nightmare. And they're out there in the cold, the rain, the whole package. And they get up early when it's dark. And they get the job done. And they did it again today for me. So thank you, guys. Love it. I can't even explain how good I feel when I come out and everything's gone. And we ended up we were away, Cutie and I were away last, I don't know what happened. We ended up we had 3 cans of, I'm still the Christmas detritus. We had, but 3 cans of recycling today. And they got it all done. I can't say enough. I was running a little late. I didn't have time to put the cans back. I'll do that when I get home. But, yeah. DPW. Just say thanks. Don't have to make a big deal out of it. They don't want a big deal made about it. Just say thank you. Somebody texts in, Bob LTS, I don't believe Martin Luther King gets the scrutiny he warrants. If we are reviewing history of past leaders like Jefferson, Washington, etc., then there's plenty of material related to MLK that has been ignored and whitewashed. Now, I actually don't think so. I don't agree with your premise, but I will say this. The scrutiny, remember where the scrutiny comes from. The left. Oh. Are we back, Bulldog? See, these things come out of nowhere. We're the news station. We got to do this stuff. Anyway, back to Martin Luther King. Yeah, there were personal picadillos. There's no doubt about it. I mean, nobody's perfect. Come on. And by the way, you could take virtually anyone's life, and then virtually anyone, certainly most people. Let me go that far. And you could interpret events of their life from the outside negatively and make them look bad. I choose to look at Martin Luther King and talk about peaceful, incredibly courageous leadership, peaceful leadership, that had he been allowed to stay on this planet, to be here, had he lived, put it more simply, you would have had an entirely different relationship between our communities, or whatever you want to call them. I think we'd have complete racial harmony if we followed the path of Martin Luther King. The race hucksters who had to replace him and who surged forward to replace him became disgraceful. The vast majority of them. They became left-wing government stooges. We went from Martin Luther King, and again, I'll accept his personal picadillos. We all have them. We went from Martin Luther King to Al Sharpton. You want to talk about a sharp, disgraceful drop-off? It's like going from JFK, with all his personal picadillos, to Joe Biden. My God. You want to talk about going off the cliff? Harry Truman to Chuck Schumer. Oh, my God. What has happened? So, Jefferson, Washington, their scrutiny, and again, remember where it comes from. It comes primarily from the left. So they're going to attack. They're going to attack leaders for personal picadillos, real or perceived, and we're not going to do the same. We're just not, because we know better. They don't, and they don't have anything to actually discredit our founding fathers. That's why I brag about them at the beginning of each and every show. Irreplaceable, amazing, incredible, right? By the way, somebody else asking, Pastor Mitch saying, God bless you and good morning. Thank you, Pastor Mitch, ALTS back at you. And somebody saying, where's the snow and ice we were supposed to get last night? It was a pleasant surprise not to have it. Do you see this? Now, I want to remind you, nobody has better resources to determine the weather, and nobody's more experienced than Joe Snedeker. But they get it wrong. So how are they right about climate change? The same different, by the way, left-wing lunatics about climate change. They know what the climate's going to be in 30 years, but we can't predict accurately snow and ice overnight last night. How about that? Isn't that great? Tells you what you got to remember. You really do. We've got to know these people. All right, let's quickly go, if we can, we got to go to the Bloomberg Money Minute. All right. Because I didn't look at my Cordaro Jewelers watch. I was ready to call on Angelo. We'll come back to him after this break. But my Cordaro Jewelers watch, downtown Scranton, tells me it's 9:50 on the nose. Well, you know when you hear that, it's time for Angelo from Madisonville. Angeloots! How are you, man?
What's up, buddy?
We
How
were
you
running out
doing?
of time, and we had Dave McCormick coming up after 10 o'clock, so I said, I got to get Angelo on now.
Yeah. I tell you, I just wanted to talk about the VFW in Daleville, Covington Township. We got Rob and Don and Kenny and Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones had surgery, heart surgery,
Oh,
and
wow.
I wish him the best. Veterans, they're all veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And Monday night they got the shuffleboard, bowling, and then Wednesday they got the dart league. But they do so much for the community. They,
That's a great
go.
VFW. That's a great VFW.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I just wanted to shout out to all of them there. They work hard. The auxiliary works hard. I'll tell you what a place. I mean, they have during Lent they have the best fish fry and you could buy. You
Well,
know
we
what
got
I
to make
mean?
sure we publicize that when it comes.
Yeah. I was gonna. It's during Lent, and I'll give you a shout about it. You know what I mean? It's good to hear you back live there.
How are you
Uh,
doing?
well, you know what? I woke up, got out of bed, put the comb across my head, uh, let, let the dog out, fell
Uh-huh.
down the steps, slid down on my butt.
Uh-huh.
There's only 14 steps, so that ain't too bad. You know what I mean? There's a lot of cushion. I got a lot of cushion. The dog's on the bottom of the steps looking like, well, you're a clumsy son of a gun, aren't you?
What's the matter with this guy?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, what's the matter for you, man? It's amazing. I don't know if I have time to tell you this real quick. The guy says to me, right, he says, so are you ever going to date again? I said, well, not with you. I like girls, you know what I mean? And he said, well, what are you looking for? I said, well, in a woman, they got to be between the age of 21 and 90, first of all. I said, and second of all, they got to be a blonde, brunette, and a redhead. He says, boy, you don't have standards at all, do you? Yeah. It's you know my situation. It's 22 months now. I lost
Yeah.
my best friend.
You
You know
don't
what I
get
mean?
you don't get over that. You don't.
No, you get through it and you pray to God for strength. And I just want to shout out to all the veterans that go to all of these VFWs. And Rosie Burke, you know her.
Uh-huh.
She's from more. Yeah, she's a bartender there, and I mean
We
everybody
got to
loves.
get up there and tip a few.
Yeah. I don't drink anymore. I quit August 23rd, 1983. You know why? You know what I mean? I'm allergic to alcohol. Every time I drank it, I broke out in handcuffs,
Hey,
so I had to
by,
quit. You know what I mean?
by the way, I talked about it yesterday. While I was away, in the paper was Mr. Myra's passing, and that great Myra's bar on Chestnut Street may be no more, you know?
Oh boy, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Mike Myra passed away, and
God rest his soul. Wow.
yeah, and I've understand that the liquor license is already sold, which means it doesn't necessarily have to be in that location. And that was like a museum to bars. I love that place.
Yeah, I frequented a lot of these bars. You know what I mean? I knew a lot of people. Uh,
Until you kept breaking out in handcuffs and you realized why.
I still go in there, but
Okay, well that's the thing. I'll
yeah,
tip a few. You be there.
yeah. Well, you know what? I'm the only person that goes in and maybe has a brisk iced tea or water, and they're looking at me. They say, "What's the matter with you?" I says, "You don't have time to find out."
Angelo, we got to go, my man. My
Okay.
Ricardo's watch tells me it's 10:01 and change means
Well,
we're
no, you got to go. Arrivederci.
all right,
Buonanotte.
all right, my man. Great to hear from you, Angelo. Angelo from Madisonville takes us to the news with Brian Hughes. We'll be back with Senator McCormick. great good morning, everyone. My Picardo Jewelers watch tells me it's 10:09 and change here in the great Northeast. This chilly but beautiful Thursday, January 15, 2026. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and with the help of our man John Basiliga and his great Basiliga hospitality, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we lost last year, but celebrate today thanks to John, like Gary Leyland, Clark Summit, Paul Leonard, West Hazelton, Francis Crilly, Mountaintop, Michael Halfacker, Dixon City, Nelson Blackwell, Scranton, and Dick Wenner, Stillwater. So with history, our great founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order after that brief news adjournment, this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, where we promise you that our commitment to common sense will provide a sanctuary of sanity for all of you in a world where an entire political party, the Democrats, has gone insane. Well, someone who is keeping his wits about him in Washington, D.C. is with us, and I actually think we're going to have to get him a theme song. I don't know what it is. I'm going to ask him to think about it. I'm hanging around with guys from Brooklyn who say axe, so I slipped into that. But he is with us now, our Senator, Dave McCormick. Senator, welcome back to the Bob Cordaro Show.
Bob, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and I've got to tell you, it is an honor to watch you work on behalf of the people of Pennsylvania.
Well, thank you, sir. Happy New Year to you. It's always great to come on your show. And, I always say this, but I never want to miss an opportunity. I feel absolutely privileged to have been given the opportunity here to work on behalf of Pennsylvania. So I'm working hard at it, and I think we're making some progress.
All right, so we'll touch on it briefly. You just got out of a crypto meeting in the banking committee. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, just to put this in perspective, we got this growing crypto industry, Bob, across the country and across Pennsylvania. 17% of all adults in the United States use crypto in some form or another. It's growing quickly. It's creating lots of jobs and lots of opportunity. And if we don't lead the charge here, other countries will. We will lose our leadership. But we don't have a regulatory framework. We don't have a way to make sure we protect consumers. We don't have enough controls to make sure that crypto is not used for illicit finance. And with that uncertainty, we're not going to have investment in crypto. So what we're trying to do is there's something called the Clarity Act, which people are working on and negotiating, which we're trying to get a legislative framework that Democrats and Republicans can support and the president can sign. And in doing that, we want to do two things. We want to balance two things. We want to get innovation and investment coming into crypto, but we also want to make sure we protect our banks, our community banks. We want to make sure that they aren't disadvantaged in some way by these new digital assets. So that's what we're working on. It's a complex piece of legislation. It's lots of interest involved, and we take two steps forward and one step back, and that was the big focus today.
All right, let's go to the other hot button issues, including the extradition of Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. An extraordinary military operation. Extraordinary.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I had a classified meeting with Secretary of Defense, Hegseth, Rubio, Secretary of State, Radcliffe, CIA Director, and Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And Kane is describing this operation. Like at 12:02, they crossed the line. It's just minute by minute. It was riveting, Bob. I mean, it was like a Tom Clancy novel. And as you know, I was in the 82nd. The 82nd was involved in this operation, and it was extraordinary. They were on the ground less than 2 hours. They were able to go into Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, on a heavily guarded military base, set down, captured Maduro and his wife, left the operation. They were on the ground less than 2 hours, and other than a couple shrapnel wounds, no casualties on the U.S. side. Unbelievable. And it just sends a signal around the world that we have the finest military in the world. It sends a signal that if you're going to do things like Venezuela's doing, Maduro's doing, which is be a transshipment center for drugs that are killing Pennsylvanians, if you're going to be a narco-terrorist, beware. If Trump says he's going to do something, he's going to do it, and our military is capable. And I think that was a shot heard around the world.
I went through the implications yesterday, and it's only a partial list. Economically, negotiate geopolitically vis-a-vis the Chinese with our control of Venezuelan and now American resources. We're unparalleled in that area right now.
No doubt. You know, he actually had it in writing, but I didn't fully understand what Trump was talking about. He came out with his national security strategy, I don't know, 2 months ago. And in it, it said, we are going to pay special attention to the Western Hemisphere. That's our backyard. And sure enough, and, you know, listen, he campaigned on this. I campaigned on it. But we said these drug dealers, these cartels, and by the way, these cartels, these are paramilitary organizations. They have air defense weaponry. They have drones. They have helicopters. They have heavy guns.
Submarines.
These guys are these are bad dudes, right? And I said during the campaign, and Trump did too, we got to stop the flow at the border. We got to designate these narco terrorists, and we got to go after them with our military selectively to make sure we stop killing Pennsylvanians and Americans. We killed those opioids and the fentanyl killed 4,000 Pennsylvanians last year. That's exactly what Trump is doing. And so if you're in Cuba, you're in Colombia, if you're in countries that are not supportive of the United States and are doing bad things that's going to hurt Americans, beware. The other thing in Venezuela, which you probably know, Bob, but that was a safe haven for Iran.
Yep.
That was a safe haven for the IGRC, which is a terrorist organization. So we had to take action, and I was very, very happy to support President Trump in doing that.
Perfect segue, because Iran is on everyone's map now. What is happening there? The potential for a counter-revolution against the mullahs. Where does that stand as you've been informed, and what are our options?
Yeah, it's remarkable to see this. You know, we've had these uprisings before in Iran. You know, Iran's been suppressed people, evil, immoral leadership since 1979. And every now and then there's these uprisings. But this one's different. This has taken on the amount of support for the people on the ground, the young men and women who are protesting is growing. And, you know, there's this great line from Ernest Hemingway, which says bankruptcy happens gradually and then suddenly. And what's clear is Iran is bankrupt. It's morally bankrupt. It's economically bankrupt because of the sanctions. It's military bankrupt because of the attacks of Israel and the United States on the nuclear sites. It's bankrupt in terms of its credibility to serve its people. So, in my opinion, it's only a matter of time, but very hard to guess. You and I remember, many of your listeners are probably too young, but you and I remember when the wall fell.
Yep.
In '89. It just sort of seemed impossible, and then it became possible. I think we're in one of those moments. My prediction is that there will be some abrupt and dramatic change, but it may in this year, but it may take months to do it. And I'll say one more thing, Bob,
yes,
which is really important. You know, when Obama was president, there was protests like this, and you know what Obama did? Nothing.
Yeah.
He did not say a word. And President Trump has from day one spoken up for freedom. He's spoken up to support others. That doesn't mean we're going to send the 82nd Airborne into Iran tomorrow, but he has made it clear that we support free-loving people. and that makes a huge difference to those folks on the ground.
We have access to, because of our renewed positive relationship with Israel, incredible human intel in Iran, which Israel used to their benefit over the last couple of years. Do you feel we have enough intelligence to be able to strike at the Iranian regime strategically to help this effort?
Well, listen, without talking about any specific intel, or I don't have insight into many pieces of this, but I would say the following: we have the most extraordinary intel that we've ever had in our capabilities. We saw that in Venezuela, where we could pinpoint where he was. He moved every night, and we were able to find him. We've seen that with the targeting of Soleimani and other terrorists in Iran. So we have very robust intel capability. There's a complete blackout of the internet in Iran right now, which makes it a little bit hard to judge the scope and scale of some of the protests. But we have extraordinary intel between ourselves and our allies, and I think that has allowed us to almost have a new doctrine of military engagement under Trump, which is you see these precision attacks minimize the risk to American service members, devastating impact in and out, avoiding the disaster that, you and I both saw firsthand with 20 years of war with boots on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's not the way Trump's engaging. And so that's a long answer, but I do think we have very, very robust intel, and that'll guide us.
Senator, one last topic, and as quickly as you can, but I'm not in a hurry. I know you have to be. Minneapolis and Minnesota. This outright defiance of federal law enforcement on behalf of the scum of the earth, frankly. I don't understand it. How are you reacting to it, and how are at least the Republican caucus reacting to the ICE situation, particularly in Minnesota?
Yeah, well, Minnesota is the worst of the bunch, but it's the following. Trump ran on saying we're going to enforce our immigration laws, and the border was wide open with somewhere between 15 and 20 million illegal immigrants who entered the country. President Trump said we're going to repatriate them. We need to do that responsibly. We need to do that carefully, but we need to enforce the law. And these folks doing it from ICE, they're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're the folks in law enforcement in uniform need to have our respect. You don't have to agree with Trump's policy that we need to enforce the law to respect those that are charged with doing it. And the protesting, the payment of these protesters, the violence that's being directed at our ICE officers is a disgrace. And unfortunately, it ended in bloodshed in Minneapolis. You have to say it's a tragedy anytime a person is killed, but she put herself in harm's way, in part because of this violent uprising against ICE, and then put an ICE officer in a position where he thought his life was at risk. So tragic, but it's the result of attacking our ICE agents and when they're simply doing their job.
It's a scary situation when you've got people and elected officials actually trying to protect some of the worst criminals who are not even American citizens. When you talk to your Democrat colleagues, and they've all adopted this attack ICE stance, how do you relate to them on this issue when what they're saying doesn't make any sense?
Well, there's also, unfortunately, but you can see this over and over again. If President Trump's for it, they're against it.
Yeah.
Almost the topic of the day is unrelated to what their position is. It's and this is certainly the case as it relates to ICE. But just to make the point, we were talking about Venezuela. When I was in the 82nd, we invaded Panama. We invaded Panama in 1989. I wasn't on part of the operation on the ground, but it was because Noriega was a narco-terrorist and he was indicted. It was the exact situation. 25,000 troops on the ground. We lost 23 Americans killed in action. The reason I tell you that, there were Democrats in the majority in the House and the Senate. They applauded. They celebrated George Bush 41 for that action. It was exactly the same as what Trump did in Venezuela, and the Democrats are 100% opposed. It's the Trump derangement syndrome. If he's for it, we're against it, and certainly that's magnified in the case of ICE and the border.
Well, you've found, not only working with John Fetterman, your fellow Pennsylvania senator, but you've been going across the aisle on a number of issues and proposing legislation with Democratic senators. And so I guess working with them is still possible despite their TDS?
Yeah, it's honestly, Bob, it's the feedback I get, and when you're in a purple state like Pennsylvania, you need to find ways to do this. But I do two things at the same time. Three things, I guess. Number one, if you go to all my promises, what I said I'd do in the campaign trail, very aligned with President Trump. I have been focused on those, and I think we've delivered on most of those promises, which has been a source of great satisfaction. So strong voting record. But I also know that to get some of these, and we disagree. I disagree with Fetterman on most things. I disagree with the Democrats on most things. But I try to find areas where we can agree and get things done, because you need 60 votes to get it done, which means when you have 53 Republicans, you need Democrats. And so I've worked hard on that, things like fentanyl and nuclear power, to get Democrats involved. And then everybody's got their own way of doing it. My tone is as follows. I'm going to fight like hell for what I believe, fight like hell for Pennsylvania, but I'm not going to attack the character or the decency of the people across the aisle, because I don't want them to do that to me. And I think in part, when you see Trump shot at Butler, or you see some of the attacks on Charlie Kirk, I think it's this violence-laden language that's contributing to it. Everybody's got to do it the way they see fit, but that's how I've chosen to conduct myself, and I feel like it's the most authentic way to do the job.
Well, we are proud and honored to have you as our senator, and proud and honored to have you on the program always. You're welcome back anytime, Senator McCormick. By the way, are you interested in having a theme song when you come on the program?
Song.
Yeah, we do
like
theme songs for all our regular guests.
Yeah, I'd like a theme song.
We'll talk to your boy. I don't want to put you on the spot now, but we'll talk to your press people, and when they get in touch, they could pass on what the theme song will be.
Oh man, this is going to give me a lot of room. All right, I want a theme song, Bob. I'm coming back with a theme song. All right,
and we could vary it at times. You're not stuck with just one.
So if I'm in like a good uplifting mood, I could have one theme song, and if I'm pissed off,
yes,
I could have another theme.
Exactly.
All right, man. You got it. All right, thank you,
Senator Dave McCormick, the great state of Pennsylvania. Thank you, sir, and keep working for us. We appreciate it.
You got it. Have a good day.
All right, we'll take a break and be back. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Our veterans this hour and every hour, this day and every day, brought to you by a true patriot and someone who loves our veterans, John Basiliga. Featuring this hour, his great Basiliga hospitality. It includes 3 bar restaurants you're just going to love. They're basically perfect. The Queen City Tavern, downtown Oliphant. The Far Street Tavern in the Trips Park section of West Scranton. The Old Brook Inn, 307 Springbrook Township. Great places to watch the games this weekend. Scranton Art House, the movie house. You could be served in your chair watching your favorite first-run movie. And then for fine dining, one of the most gorgeous restaurants you will see anywhere, a Terra 519. And for a classic version of that fine dining experience, the Stegmeyer Mansion, downtown Wilkes-Barre. Love it. And of course, if it's nightlife you're looking for, Sergei's Live, the nightclub in Northeast Pennsylvania and beyond. And guess what? The Terra 519 has a Terra After Hours every weekend. It's a great bar. Michael Halfacker, Dixon City. We lost him December 8th last year. Born in Berlin, Germany. Graduate of Mid-Valley High School, class of 1977. Mike honorably served his country in the United States Air Force. He served us in Desert Storm. He received numerous citations, ribbons, you name it. NCO Professional Military Education Ribbon, Small Arms Expert Rifle, AF Longevity Service Award, National Defense Service Medal, AF Overseas Long Tour Ribbon, Overseas Short Tour Ribbon, AF Outstanding Unit Award, AF Commendation Medal, retiring as a law enforcement supervisor after 14 years of service to all of us. He enjoyed NASCAR racing, building model cars, airplanes, ships, all of that. Survived by 2 sons, 1 daughter, his sister, and 2 grandchildren. Sadly preceded in death by his wife, Judith. Michael Halfacker. Francis Crilly, Mountaintop. He was 78 when we lost him December 18. He died at home with his family surrounding him. Born in Hazleton, his family moved to Mountaintop in the early 1950s. He attended St. Leo Grade School, St. Jude School, and graduated from St. Mary's High School in 1965. He joined the Navy in 1966, was a proud U.S. Navy combat veteran of the Vietnam War. Petty Officer Crilly served as a gunner on the riverboats of the Mobile Riverine Force, River Assault Division 91, the River Rats, in 1968. Just like Apocalypse Now. After discharge in 1970, he worked for Acme Markets and then was in the printing industry for 34 years as a machine operator. He was an avid grouse hunter, bagging over 900 ruffled grouse in over 50 years of bird hunting. He was also a competitive handgun shooter, firing over 200 perfect scores. Long-range handgun competition. He was a Pennsylvania state champion 3 times. Francis was a member of St. Jude Parish, Mountaintop. Preceding Francis in death, his wife Charlene, and tragically his son Christopher. Survived by his daughters, grandchildren, and other family members. Francis Crilly. Our great veterans this hour, brought to you by John Basiliga and Basiliga Hospitality. Hey, the Storm Tracker 16 forecast from meteorologist Joe Snedeker, brought to you by our friends at Montage Mountain. Montage, you think Montage Mountain. I drive by it twice a day. I love that play. I love looking at it. I'm so proud that it's here. And they mean weather. Weather means montage. Today, windy and colder with flurries. Temperatures dropping through the 30s. Tonight, cloudy and cold, low 17. 28 degrees outside the studio right now. Friday, partly sunny, high of 30. Saturday, cloudy with flurries and snow showers, 37. Sunday, partly sunny and colder, 30. Martin Luther King Day, which Bulldog is taking off, so I have to take it off. Partly sunny and windy with a chance of flurries, high 28. Bob Cordaro back with you on this deal and all of this weather brought to you by our friends at Montage Mountain. We love them. Keep playing it, Bulldog. That is James Brown, hardest working man in showbiz. This date, 1966, Murph says he had the number one R&B hit with I Got You, I Feel Good. And that was Mayor Jacob Fry, the disgrace of a mayor from Minneapolis. Hey, quickly, some birthdays my man Mark from Hazleton sent along. Of course, Martin Luther King. Giorgia Meloni, the great Italian prime minister, the first female prime minister of Italy, and she is outstanding. Better known as the person who guided a drifting Joe Biden back to the crew of European leaders when Joe was about to get lost a couple of years ago. Philip Livingston, okay? American merchant and politician, another unknown who signed that Declaration of Independence and put their lives and the fortune on the line for us. And then Edward Teller, his birthday today, Hungarian-American theoretical physicist, often called the father of the hydrogen bomb. A dubious title, but either we had it, or the Nazis had it. Okay? So we're pretty grateful that that's what worked out. Somebody says, I've noticed while watching the protests in Wisconsin that I don't see any Somalians protesting. I just see these crazy, angry people who probably don't know what they're protesting about. You cannot know what you're protesting about. You can't. Or you'd realize how stupid you were and you wouldn't do it. It's unreal. For some of the worst thugs and criminals who are here illegally, that's who they're protesting for. And how that doesn't dawn on them, it's beyond my comprehension, but they're following some of the most disgraceful leaders in history, like Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, and Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, and Ilhan Omar, the sickening congressperson from there. Unbelievable. Somebody takes in, hey, Bob, are you in favor of Trump instituting the Insurrection Act for Minneapolis? At some point, you have to. You've got government officials openly opposing lawful federal enforcement action. It's probably as appropriate as it was ever to institute it. We're going to see what he does. Another listener says there are many problems still unsolved in the USA. Crypto, how does that affect an 80-year-old? Well, I don't have any either, but it's going to affect the economy. And booms and busts that are inevitably going to follow something that really doesn't have any backing. You buy crypto, it's full faith and credit of the person you're trading with, not the United States. And I'll say this. Our guy, now in addition to being a combat veteran, in addition to being so many great things, Dave McCormick, our senator was one of the premier investors of his time as the CEO of the largest hedge fund in the world. So I'm going to trust that he'll know better than me. I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't understand why anyone would want it, anyone would need it, but I'll trust that Dave McCormick does. And that's why I'm happy he's working on it on the Senate Banking Committee. Somebody said, why are taxpayers funding trips to Denmark for lawmakers? Well, because of Greenland. And I wanted to get into that, but there was, it was just too much. There wasn't enough time with Senator McCormick. Donald Trump is doing what Donald Trump does best. He's negotiating. He may not appear it, and his statements may appear irritating and aggravating. He follows the Richard Nixon used to do this with Kissinger. Kissinger used to say, I don't know what that madman's going to do. Well, you see that Denmark, which oversees and technically governs Greenland, is now coming to talk to us. Greenland, in addition to its geopolitical and strategic location, has incredible resources. So it's the gateway to the Arctic, which is going to become one of the key, if not kinetic battlegrounds, one of the key economic battlegrounds of this century. It's right there. Trump knows it. Trump sees it. He knows that Denmark is not strong enough to protect it from the Russians or the Chinese. They're not strong enough, and we need to use it to protect the Arctic from their incursions. Not for strategic reasons, for economic reasons, and he's acting and saying crazy things. And Marco Rubio is going to come and clean him up, and he's going to get a deal. He's going to get a deal. So that's why lawmakers are going to Denmark, because of the Greenland situation. Somebody asking about the rain. I didn't. The rain. I told you. And I hate to say that. The rain tax is never top of mind, and I admit it. I'm not paying it. I'm not paying it, and so it just doesn't come to top of mind. I apologize. I didn't ask about it. And it's never going to be a top issue for me. I apologize. I'm just not. So we'll see. Somebody says, don't forget the Democrats hired 87,000 IRS agents to go after American taxpayers. Republicans hired 20,000 ICE agents to go after criminal illegal aliens. criminal illegal alien freeloaders who steal billions of our taxpayer dollars. Well, that tells you a lot, doesn't it? Rich McHale says, Bob, please excuse my current events ignorance, but what was the vote that J.D. Vance broke yesterday? I missed the topic and content. I don't know. I will find out. But we've got to take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK, We'll be back on the eponymous program. I didn't hear it in there, but Murph tells me this, and Bulldog found it. This date, 1967, the Rolling Stones appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, performing their hit "Let's Spend the Night Together." But Sullivan made them change the lyrics to "Let's Spend Some Time Together." Let's see if we can hear it. Let's make some plans together, yeah. I think they're saying night together. Yeah, he's saying night. He's trying to sneak it in. Normally, you'd get a ban for that from the Ed Sullivan Show, but they were the Rolling Stones. They were becoming the Rolling Stones. Think about this, too, by the way. 1967. These guys are on a show, and my parents used to make us watch it, that was 50% of the American television audience. Granted, less people watching screens than there are today. But it was the whole country knew what happened on the Sullivan Show. Amazing phenomenon. And, of course, the Pentagon completed 1943. I mean, could we do that? We wouldn't even have the environmental studies done in the time it took to build the Pentagon. And that building has obviously stood the test of time. By the way, let's go back to what Rich McHale asked. And my friend Paul Lockett got in on some commentary. I did not know. Here's the short version. 2 senators, Todd Young of Indiana and inexplicably Josh Hawley, I don't know Todd Young and his voting record, whatever, had voted to limit Trump's foreign policy powers in the U.S. Senate. Those 2 Republican senators reversed their vote. Now, Rich had asked in the context of the vice president voting, which is what I was fully aware of the vote. I'm confused that Vance had to vote because the vote was 52-47. And the only time, my understanding, that the vice president votes at all in the U.S. Senate is when it's a tie. And this clearly was not. So I'm not understanding why he may have voted yesterday, which is the part that confused me. And Rich, I don't have an answer for that because he did in fact vote to break a tie. I don't know what that tie was. I really don't. And my understanding is the vice president only votes when there is an actual tie. So I'm not understanding it. But the War Powers resolution designed to rein in Trump has failed. I knew they had Rand Paul. I'm not sure who else, but I'm confused as to why the vice president would vote, because my understanding is that the vice president only votes when it is functionally a tie. And I don't know where the tie would have come in, but the reports that I'm seeing are that there actually was a vice presidential vote. So I don't know. I'm not understanding it. I'm going to look in it over the news, during the news. I'll look into it a little more as to why he might or might not have voted. They're calling it a tie-breaking vote by J.D. Vance. I'm not understanding how that comes into a 52-47 vote. All right. We'll do that while I got to do some push-ups too. And by the way, I have my Camp Freedom T-shirt on today. For those of you who are watching, you'll know what it is. It's the Camp Freedom T-shirt. WILKNewsRadio.com. You press watch and you'll see my partially bearded, smiling, and alternately scowling moon face if you check it out. But you'll see the great Camp Freedom T-shirt. We'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. My Bacardo watch tells me it's past time. It's 11:01 for Brian Hughes and the news. We'll be back. We've got Rick Bigelow on the other side. Great good morning, everyone. My Cordaro Jewelers watch tells me it's 11:08 here in the great Northeast this beautiful Thursday, January 15, 2026. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and with the help of our man, John Basiliga, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like the veterans we lost last year, but celebrate today thanks to John. Like Francis Crilly, Mountaintop, Michael Halfacker, Dixon City, Gary Leyland, Clark Summit, Paul Leonard, West Hazelton, Nelson Blackwell, Scranton, and Richard Dick Wenner, Stillwater. So with history, our great founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising you that our dedication and commitment to common sense will provide a sanctuary of sanity for all of you in a topsy-turvy world where we've lost an entire party, the Democrats, to insanity. Hey, something I didn't get to mention yet. My old friend Bob Garrity, former South Abington Township Police Chief Robert Garrity, he passed away, a battle with cancer. Just a great cop and a great person. Man, is he going to be missed. Bob Garrity. And if you remember, not too long ago, he facilitated his father-in-law's appearance here on his 100th birthday for a veterans tribute. So just a great family, and Bob Garrity, a huge loss to his friends, to the community, you name it. Quickly touching, one more thing. One of our great listeners texts in, the overall government project manager for the Pentagon was General Leslie Groves, who would go on to lead the Manhattan Project. Thank you. I've touched on that before. Always good to mention it. A great American making things happen. All right, so a bunch of you texted in, as did Rich McHale. The final vote was 51-50. Now, the vote that was touted from the other day was 52-47. I just wasn't making sense of the numbers. Meaning they voted to limit Trump's power. By the way, in Venezuela, which is already over, there's no troops on the ground. But you know what it is? Here's how sick the Democrats are. They want Trump to fail in Venezuela because it could make gas prices dramatically cheaper here. It will make negotiations with the Red Chinese dramatically better. And they figure, well, if Trump sends troops in there, if things aren't going the way he wants, he could force things to go well in Venezuela. That's how sick these bastards are. It's unbelievable. They want him to fail. This was former vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine, his motion. They're sickening. Absolutely sickening. And thank you to Josh Hawley for switching his vote. We played him at the beginning of the program. So many great features. Todd Young from Indiana as well. I don't know his story. But with them flipping votes, it brought about a 50-50 tie, and Vance voted. The tie broken 51-50. All right. I told you, we've got a history lesson coming. And Rick Bigelow and I had talked about this, and it is worth delving into. General Douglas MacArthur, one of the giants of the 20th century, and a controversial giant at that. And here is our man, Rick Bigelow, to talk about it some more. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Bob. How about you?
Great, great. Douglas MacArthur. He was a colossus that strode across of the history, the pages of history in the 20th century. Let's get right to it.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like whenever you talk about World War I, the interwar years, World War II, post-World War II Japan, and the Korean War, Douglas MacArthur reigned supreme in a lot of these instances. So we thought it was a good idea just to give a capsulation of what his life was like. So he was born in 1880 in Little Rock, Arkansas, in a military base. And at that point in time, Arkansas was on the frontier. So he was born in the frontier. His father was Lieutenant General Arthur MacArthur Jr., who won the Medal of Honor at Missionary Ridge in Chattanooga during the Civil War. His mother, Mary Pinckney Hardy, was from a prominent family in Norfolk. He had two siblings, two brothers, two older brothers. One was Navy Captain Arthur MacArthur III, who actually graduated from Annapolis, won the Navy Cross during the Spanish-American War. He was on his way to flag rank when he died of appendicitis at the age of 47, and he's buried in Arlington. Another older brother, Malcolm MacArthur, died from measles when he was only 5 years old, which was, kind of typical at that point in time. He also had a very interesting nephew, Douglas MacArthur II. A lot of people think he's Douglas MacArthur's son, but he's his nephew. He's the son of Arthur MacArthur, who was a Navy captain. He was an Army officer and Foreign Service officer in World War II. He worked with the French resistance. He was captured and spent 2 years as a German POW. After the war, became ambassador to Iran, Austria, Belgium, and Japan. So he was from a quite remarkable family. So Douglas was born in 1880. He moved to a bunch of Army posts in the Southwest and back to Washington, D.C. Finally, his father was posted to San Antonio. Douglas attended the West Texas Military Academy, where he was valedictorian, football quarterback, and baseball shortstop. He got into West Point in 1899. His mother moved into a hotel on the West Point grounds so that she could keep an eye on him.
I actually saw her room. I went to that night. I was at that hotel on a visit to West Point, and I said, I've got to see where did his mother live? Because I guess he went over there on weekends or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. So she kept an eye on him. And the other interesting thing, the mother of another cadet, Ulysses S. Grant III, also moved into the hotel at the same time. So MacArthur became famous because a cadet died in a hazing incident, and MacArthur actually was called to testify before Congress. So he played left field on the baseball team, and he was the manager for the football team, was the first captain, and they graduated with the third highest score ever from West Point. So he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Corps of Engineers in 1903. And at that point in time, most of the graduates from West Point got into the engineering corps. So he was sent to the Philippines and a bunch of other posts throughout the Pacific and back in the United States. In 1905, the powers that be in the War Department at the time wanted to kind of put his father out to pasture. So they assigned, he was the highest ranking general in the Army at the time, but they didn't want him to be the Army Chief of Staff. So they sent him to the Far East to do an inspection tour, and Douglas accompanied him. So he got quite an indoctrination into the Far East because they went to Japan, China, Singapore, and India. Then they came back. to Washington, and Douglas was assigned to be on Teddy Roosevelt's staff for a while. His father died in 1912. He returned to Milwaukee to care for his mother and then moved back to Washington. In 1914, he took part in the Veracruz expedition. And at this point in time, relations between the U.S. and Mexico were fractious, to say the least. So the United States, under Wilson, sent troops to Veracruz to take some American property back. He did quite well at the Veracruz expedition, and it was recommended for the Medal of Honor, but the board declined to give him the Medal of Honor because he had ignored orders and gone off on his own. So in 1916, he became head of the Army Bureau of Information, and basically it was the public relations aspect of the Army. And at that point in time, he learned the importance of good relations with the press. He also had frequent interaction with then Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Franklin D. Roosevelt. The two would meet again. So in 1917, as it looked like we were going to get involved in World War I, MacArthur switched from the engineers to the infantry. Up until this point in time, he had been strictly in the engineers. Upon the outbreak of war, he recommended that the United States mobilize men from the National Guard units throughout the country, and that became the Rainbow Division, which was the 42nd Division. He's promoted to colonel, becomes chief of staff of the Rainbow Division, and they sail for France on October 18th, 1917. While he was in France in 1918, he took part in several campaigns, nominated again for the Medal of Honor, but he received a Distinguished Service Cross instead, was awarded 7 Silver Stars and a French Croix de Guerre, as well as receiving a Purple Heart because he had been gassed, and he was promoted to Brigadier General. He spent quite a bit of time.
Were some of these awards political?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think they were well deserved.
Okay.
He had quite a distinguished record in World War I, and I mean he led from the front, even though he was lieutenant colonel and eventually a brigadier general, and he took some very difficult assignments and did very well. Having said all that, he was a prima donna. He refused to wear a helmet or a gas mask, and he often wore a long scarf his mother had knitted for him. And then he took the metal band out of the top of his hat so it could look like he had spent a lot of time in battle, which he had. He also carried a riding crop and a pistol. So he was determined to stand out, which he did. Yeah. And I mean, he was fairly tall and lean, and he led his troops.
Fascinating. Well,
so
Rick
after
Bigelow,
World War I,
we've got to Rick Bigelow. We got to take a break. We're going to take a break. We'll briefly get through his interwar career, and then we'll come back. And it's Douglas MacArthur, the American Caesar. We'll take a break and be back. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Murph says this date, 1969, they released their great hit, Proud Mary. And, of course, 73, Nixon announcing suspension of all U.S. offensive action in North Vietnam, citing false progress in the Vietnam negotiations. Rick Bigelow is our guest, and we're talking about Douglas MacArthur, his career. We're between wars now, Rick. Let's go through that.
So he becomes superintendent at West Point and is credited with upgrading the curriculum and making the junior officers that come out of West Point much better soldiers, much better officers. He has moved around to a bunch of different commands, including back in the Philippines. He's promoted to Major General, the youngest ever, and assumes command of a couple other Army commands. He, in November of 1930, he becomes Army Chief of Staff with the rank of General. He's one of the youngest ever. And at the time, he presided over a major downsizing of the Army during the Depression. 1932, the Bonus Army incident, I think we've kind of touched on that before, where, bonus marchers who were veterans, mostly unemployed, marched on Washington to get their bonuses that Congress had authorized, get them a little bit earlier because these guys needed money. They most were unemployed. So they had an encampment across the Anacostia River in Washington, and MacArthur, who was the chief of staff of the Army, basically crossed the river and moved them out. A couple people died, and there were fires, and a lot of people were injured, and so on and so forth. This was a public relations disaster for MacArthur, but the newspapers mostly blamed Hoover, and it turns out that Hoover had instructed MacArthur not to move them out of the encampment, but he kind of disregarded Hoover's instructions because he saw communists everywhere, and so he thought they were communist inspired, so he did it. But he dodged a bullet there without a doubt. He probably should have been relieved at the point in time, but he dodged a bullet. So in 1932, FDR becomes president, and they knew each other from World War I and times before. FDR demanded and got a large reduction in the Army, and he and MacArthur clashed several times on that. In 1935, the Philippines becomes a semi-independent nation, and President Quezon asked MacArthur to supervise formation of the Philippine Army. MacArthur was
this contrived, or did it?
Well,
why MacArthur?
Yeah, I think FDR always looked upon MacArthur as a potential political rival. So I think
he wanted to get him out of town.
Out of town, but still under his control, because
now I don't want to rush you through this section, but there's some real above board corruption here when he takes over this position. Yeah.
He first of all, he gets a large salary, $30,000 a year at the time, which was
fortune.
It was a fortune. And he also signs an agreement that he's going to get a certain percentage of what the Philippines spends on defense. And it would be cumulative. And by 1941, that added up to $500,000, which was that was an outrageous sum of money at that point in time.
He's like the king of this country, Philippines.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it goes back to his uniform. The hat he wore all through World War II wasn't a regulation Army general's hat. It was the hat that he designed as the field marshal of the Philippines military. So, basically for any ex-military guys out there, he was out of uniform all of World War II and into Korea. So So he
Quite
becomes the
amazing.
head of the Philippine field marshal Philippine military, and he had a good reputation as a general. In fact, Chiang Kai-shek wanted him to take over the Chinese military, but FDR didn't want that. He wanted him far away, but still under his control.
All right, now let's go right to World War II.
Okay,
MacArthur gets his $500,000 for
he
pre-war
does.
service, and then the war breaks out.
Right. So I mean, he was building up the Philippine military, but the Philippine is 7,000 islands and hundreds of different dialects, and so on and so forth. So it wasn't going to be a very robust force, but MacArthur convinced the powers that be in Washington, just send me some more equipment, and if the Japanese decide to invade, I'm going to beat them back at the coastline. That was specious thinking, to say the least. There was no way he could do it. So on December 7th, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, MacArthur was convinced that they were going to attack, but they were going to attack the Philippines. So he's notified that the attack's going on in Pearl Harbor. He thinks it must be wrong. They're really coming after the Philippines. And so he does nothing for 9 hours. He should have alerted the forces and got them ready for the Japanese incursion, but he didn't do it. And eventually the Japanese take off from Taiwan and come in and basically destroy whatever air force was there at Clark Airfield in the Philippines. So the Japanese just are taking over most of the Philippines with very little resistance. The Filipino army wasn't very good. There weren't many Americans there. So they pushed them back to Bataan. MacArthur leaves Manila, declares it an open city, and goes to Corregidor. And the defense put up by the troops on Bataan was significant. It was laudatory, but he just doesn't have enough troops to hold back the Japanese. Eventually, Bataan falls, and FDR tells MacArthur to leave Corregidor and go to Australia. So he leaves Corregidor and heads off to Australia. He gets to Australia and he thinks there's going to be a huge army there that he's immediately going to turn around and go back to the Philippines and take it back. He gets there, and to his surprise, he finds out there's no army there. He takes over as head of all Allied forces in the Southwest Pacific.
Oh, we lost you for a second there, Rick.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
Back.
Rick, we've got to take a break.
Okay.
Bob Cordaro, WILK. Rick Bigelow is our guest. Douglas MacArthur is the subject. We'll take a break and be back. We're in the midst of World War II. Our Veterans Tribute this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Brought to you by our friend John Basiliga and his great Basiliga hospitality. As we look to the weekend and an amazing weekend of football, you should enjoy these games in amazing places, like the Old Brook Inn, 307 Springbrook Township, the Far Street Tavern in the Great Trips Park section of West Scranton, the Queen City Tavern, downtown Oliphant. Oh, Atara's got a TV now, right near my bar seat. Fine dining, amazing bar, and they are in their second week of Atara After Hours for that great bar. Sergei's the nightclub. It'll be rocking this weekend. Even old codgers like me can sneak downstairs. Stegmeyer Mansion, downtown Wilkes-Barre. Awesome, transportive to a time and place that we could only imagine. Nelson Blackwell, Scranton. Born in Morris, PA. He joined the United States Air Force and proudly served this country for 10 years, becoming a staff sergeant. That was one of his proudest achievements, and he often spoke fondly of his time in the military. The skills he learned there allowed him to work on electronics throughout his career. He was known for his wit and endless silly sayings or Nelsonisms. A kind and loving father, brother, grandfather, great-grandfather, and friend. Survived by his loving daughter, granddaughter, great-grandchildren, and many other family members. Tragically preceded in death by his son, Mark, and other family members. Nelson Blackwell. Richard Dick Wenner. We lost him at age 98, December 18th. He passed away at the Wenner family farm, Stillwater. Born on that farm in 1927, the youngest child. He attended Zaner School before graduating from Bloomsburg High School. He entered the Navy Reserve as an officer in training toward the end of World War II, then attended Swarthmore College on a Navy scholarship before completing his bachelor's degree at the University of Pennsylvania, where he also earned a master's in governmental administration at the Fells Institute of Government. His work in the next decades focused on issues of poverty, housing, and immigrant rights until he retired as executive director of the Fund for an Open Society, a nonprofit housing organization in Philadelphia. Dick was a member of the Millville Quaker Meeting, and his lifelong dedication to education and service is one of his legacies. Lifetime, he was a volunteer for libraries, prison visitation, the unhoused, the forest conservation. Survived by his sons, daughters, as well as 9 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren. He was preceded in death by his wife of 48 years, the former Shirley Lockwood. Dick Wenner, our great veterans this hour, brought to you by our man John Basiliga and Basiliga Hospitality. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from meteorologist Joe Snedeker, brought to you by our friends at Montage Mountain. There's another place you got to think of when it comes to weekend. Any outdoor activity you could imagine, you could find it at the great Montage Mountain. Today, windy and colder with flurries, temperatures dropping through the 30s. Tonight, cloudy and cold, low 17. Friday, partly sunny, high 30. Saturday, cloudy with flurries and snow showers, 37. Sunday, partly sunny and colder, high 30. Monday, Martin Luther King Day, which we will not be here for, neither the Bulldog nor I. Partly sunny and windy with a chance of flurries, high 28. Think Montage Mountain if you think weather. When you think weather, think Montage Mountain, the place to be if you want to be outdoors. Murph tells us this date, 1972. Don McLean achieved a double #1 hit on the adult charts and the Billboard charts with American Pie. Bob Cordaro back with you on the eponymous program. Mother Teresa, St. Teresa for today, before we get back to Rick Bigelow, January 15th. At the moment of death, we will not be judged according to the number of good deeds we have done or by the diplomas we have received in our lifetime. We will be judged according to the love we have put into our work. And she was judged properly as a saint. Mother Teresa for today. And back to Rick Bigelow now. We're in the middle of a less than saintly discussion of MacArthur. So he returns, because and I apologize, we're trying to condense a 2-hour plus lecture into, 30 minutes tops. He comes back and he does return to the Philippines as America conquers Japan. And then why was he chosen to become the military governor of Japan, if you know?
Well, yeah, there were two people who were vying for that. One was Nimitz, who really wanted it, and the other was MacArthur. I think since they thought that there were going to be more soldiers in Japan to hold down any potential uprising, that they would let MacArthur be the governor. And, in some respects, he was the shogun or the vice consul or whatever you want to call him of Japan. But
and we have no idea how Nimitz would have performed, probably very well. But MacArthur turned out to be uniquely suited for this.
Absolutely. I mean, he kind of had this imperial countenance about him. So I think the Japanese people thought, well, he's kind of like the new emperor for a while, and so we'll just obey him. And so he did very well in the Philippines campaign, in the New Guinea campaign, and when he took over as the military governor of Japan, I think this was probably his finest achievement, because not only did he get the Japanese economy back, he basically outlawed militarism, and he gave women the vote. He basically allowed the big industrial consortiums to still exist, but they had to be strictly regulated. But by 1950, one thing MacArthur knew was occupations never end well. So you got to get in, do what you're going to do, and get out. And so that was his goal. By 1950, a lot of his reforms had taken place. They had a new constitution. And by the way, that constitution is still intact today, and it's never been amended. But the economy wasn't doing very.
And now, and I apologize, we bounce right to the Korean War. He's there.
Right.
He's in charge of, theoretically, the Pacific, and the North Koreans attack across the 38th parallel.
They sure do. And he was caught by surprise, as were most of his staff. And the North Koreans almost pushed the Allies off the Korean peninsula. Then we have the Incheon landing, which some say was brilliant, some say was lucky, probably a little bit of both. Yeah. And then he pushes into North Korea, kind of against the wishes of the government, and it goes all the way up, touches the Yalu River, and that's when the Communist Chinese attack and basically push the 8th Army all the way back across the 38th parallel and encircle the Marines, and of course the fabulous breakout from the Chosin Reservoir takes place. Later in 1951, MacArthur is making all kinds of bellicose statements about attacking the Chinese with modified nuclear weapons and using the Chiang Kai-shek's forces from Taiwan to oppose the Chinese. And Truman's had enough, and he fires him. So MacArthur comes back to the United States and treated as a hero, even more so than Eisenhower had been at the end of World War II. he makes a speech to Congress about, you know, I'm an old soldier and I'll just fade away. And then inexplicably, he just fades away. And he
Yeah.
thought he was going to be a candidate for president in 1952. You know, his time has passed. And he just kind of fades into oblivion. Eisenhower met with him once, but really didn't like him very much. And he met with Kennedy once or twice, and that was it. And his career was over. He passes away in 1964. Instead of being buried in Arlington, and he said he didn't want to do that because why would he want to be buried among all his enemies? He is buried in a mausoleum in Norfolk, Virginia, the most Navy of all towns in the world, because his mother was from Norfolk.
Fascinating.
So,
Now, you sent along a quote about Douglas MacArthur from what I think is the definitive biography of him, William Manchester's American Caesar. It says he was a great thundering paradox of a man, noble and ignoble, inspiring and outrageous, arrogant and shy, the best of men and worst of men, the most protean, most ridiculous, and most sublime. No more baffling, exasperating soldier ever wore a uniform. Flamboyant, imperious, and apocalyptic, he carried the plumage of a flamingo, could not acknowledge errors, and tried to cover up his mistakes with sly, childish tricks. Yet he was also endowed with great personal charm, a will of iron, and a soaring intellect. Unquestionably, he was the most gifted man-at-arms this nation had produced. Captures it.
and you got to remember, Manchester was a Marine,
Yeah.
and he had been seriously wounded in Okinawa. So having a Marine say that about an Army guy is quite a tribute.
Well, Rick, we appreciate it so much, and I'm sorry to make it more brief than it could be, should be, but we appreciate it. These people have to be remembered. These times have to be remembered because, in my view, particularly in the Far East with China, we're approaching almost the same dynamics.
Yep, the past is prologue, without a doubt.
Amen. Well, again, Rick Bigelow, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. We look forward to your next appearance.
Glad to do it, Bob.
All right, my man. We'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We will return. The Biden military sign in Greenridge, day 31. The Greenridge Neighborhood Association had a meeting, and they decided by a vote of 10 votes to 5 to retain the disrespectful banner. And I say to the Greenridge Neighborhood Association and those 10 fools who voted to keep Biden as a military hero in their neighborhood, I repeat where we come from. You can salute him all you want and look as foolish as you want, but he was not a military veteran. He received multiple deferments and does not deserve a hometown hero banner under any circumstances. Greenridge Neighborhood Association, you are disgracing and disrespecting our veterans. Day 31. We conclude the program today with something that our man Larry from Plymouth brought to our attention. Disturbed. Murph tells us that on this day, 2016, they had the number one rock hit with their incredible version, overpowering version of Sounds of Silence. As we discuss that, final mention of our great veterans. True, actual veterans, Greenridge Neighborhood Association. Men we lost this last year but celebrate today thanks to John Basiliga, like Nelson Blackwell of Scranton, Francis Crilly, Mountaintop, Michael Halfacker, Dixon City, Gary Leyland, Clark Summit, Paul Leonard, West Hazelton, and Dick Wenner, Stillwater. Actual veterans, Greenridge Neighborhood Association. Wake up! We'll take a break because it's time. Sue Henry show next. Rob O'Donnell show after that, God willing. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning. But for now, we must adjourn this meeting of the Club for Common Sense. Adios.